In a night from the nights of the 12th century AD, the sky of the Islamic East was overcast with clouds of despair. Jerusalem, the flower of cities, groans under the yoke of the Crusader occupation for over half a century. The Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad had weakened in body, and the surrounding Islamic states were eroded by internal conflicts and civil wars. The Muslims were like orphans at a villain's feast, looking at the Al-Aqsa Mosque with broken hearts, finding no one to bind their wounds. Yet, from the womb of this deep darkness, and from the heart of wars and suffering, a new hope dawned. He was not merely a brilliant military commander. He was a man who carried in his heart firm faith and a clear vision, a man who abandoned palaces to live in tents and replaced silken garments with the armor of war, a man who believed that victory comes not by military force alone, but by justice, values, and the unity of word. He is the just Sultan, the most noble king, Nur ad-Din Mahmud Zengi, the man who conquered not only the Crusaders, but conquered despair in the souls of Muslims, and paved the way, stone by stone, for the hero Saladin to reach the gates of Jerusalem as a liberator. So who is this exceptional leader, and how was he able, amidst this overwhelming chaos, to build a strong state, unite the nation, and become a nightmare that disturbed the beds of the invaders? This is the story of the knight who lived for God. So history immortalized his name with letters of light. Nur ad-Din Mahmud was born in the city of Mosul in the year 1118 AD, in a family that knew only the language of the sword and ambition. His father was Imad ad-Din Zengi, the hero prince of Mosul and Aleppo, who recorded the first major victory for Muslims by reclaiming Edessa from Crusader hands. In this atmosphere charged with wars and responsibility, Nur ad-Din grew up. His childhood was not soft. It was a hard school where his father taught him the arts of combat, war strategies, and the importance of defending the frontiers of Islam. Yet, Nur ad-Din was different from his peers. Alongside his military prowess, he yearned for knowledge and understanding. He studied jurisprudence and hadith, associated with scholars and righteous people, and was deeply influenced by the ideas of religious revival that were beginning to spread at that time, especially the ideas of Imam al-Ghazali. Nur ad-Din saw that the weakness of the Muslims was not only military, but it was a weakness of morals, spirit, and political fragmentation. When his father Imad ad-Din was martyred while he was in his 27th year, Nur ad-Din inherited Aleppo and northern Syria. It was a heavy burden, a state threatened by the Crusaders from one side and by ambitious Muslim princes from the other. But he did not hesitate. He immediately began implementing his unique vision. Nur ad-Din realized that military victory over the Crusaders was impossible without achieving two essential things. First, unity of word. He did not believe in warring statelets. He saw Syria, Egypt, and Iraq as one body. So he began clever diplomatic and military campaigns to unite the Syrian cities under one banner. He reclaimed Damascus, Homs, and Hama, not always by the power of the sword, but by his wisdom, justice, and combating of corruptors, which made the peoples open the doors to him voluntarily. Second, building the human before building the army. Nur ad-Din believed that a just society is a strong society. So he established the Nuriya schools to teach Islamic and scientific sciences, built hospitals, by Maristans, dug wells, constructed mosques, and cared for the poor and needy. He would sit himself to study jurisprudence, listen to the complaints of people, and judge with justice, until he was titled the Just Sultan. He transformed Syria from a devastating battlefield into a beacon of knowledge, justice, and strength. Thus, Nur ad-Din built his state on two solid foundations: the sword that protects and the values that build. With the foundations of his new state established, Nur ad-Din Mahmud began directing his strikes against the Crusaders. He did not fight to gather spoils or expand influence. His fight was a holy jihad to liberate the land and protect honor. He would appear in the front ranks, wearing his simple armor, carrying the banner of Tawhid, divine unity, instilling terror in the hearts of enemies and courage in the hearts of his soldiers. The Nurid victories followed sequentially, and history recorded eternal battles. In the Battle of Yagra, He inflicted a crushing defeat on the Crusaders and killed their famous leader, Raymond, Prince of Antioch, which severely weakened the northern Crusader principality. And in the Battle of Haram, he achieved another brilliant victory, capturing a number of high-ranking Crusader leaders, making the kings of Europe tremble at the mere mention of his name. Nur ad-Din reclaimed a large number of forts, castles, and cities that the Crusaders had occupied in Syria, turning their lives into a continuous hell. He knew how to exploit the disputes between the Crusader principalities, striking them at their points of weakness with exceptional military intelligence. Yet, military victories were not everything, for Nur ad-Din was a humane leader even in the darkest circumstances. He would prevent his soldiers from harming civilians, respect captives, and preserve churches and temples. He embodied the ethics of the true Muslim knight, making even his enemies respect and fear him at the same time. The Crusaders used to call him the Lion King for the intensity of his might and courage, and they knew they were facing a leader completely different from all who preceded him. He was not fighting for the life of this world. He was fighting for the hereafter, and this is the secret that made him unconquerable. Nur ad-Din Zengi transformed the Islamic front from a state of complete defense to a state of continuous attack, and the hope of reclaiming Jerusalem began to loom on the horizon strongly. While Nur ad-Din was fighting the Crusaders in Syria, his eyes were turning toward Egypt. He saw that Egypt was the key to ultimate victory over the Crusaders. The Fatimid state in Egypt was living the death rattles, and Egypt was a coveted prize for the Crusaders, who tried to occupy it multiple times. Nur ad-Din realized that Egypt falling into Crusader hands meant the end of hope in reclaiming Jerusalem. So he began planning to send military campaigns to Egypt to protect it and unite it with Syria. He sent his most successful commanders, Asad ad-Din Shirkuh, and with him his young, ambitious nephew Saladin Ayyubi. The Nurid campaigns in Egypt faced immense difficulties, fighting both Crusaders and Fatimids alike. However, thanks to Nur ad-Din's acumen and the support of his soldiers, Saladin Ayyubi was able to establish his foothold in Egypt, becoming a minister of the Fatimid state, then abolishing the Fatimid Caliphate and returning Egypt to the fold of the Abbasid Caliphate. Nur ad-Din's greatest dream was achieved. Egypt and Syria were united under one banner, and the powerful Ayyubid-Zengid Empire was formed, capable of facing the Crusaders from both sides. And in the midst of these victories, Nur ad-Din Zengi did not forget his greatest and dearest dream, liberating the Al-Aqsa Mosque. He lived on the hope that he would be the one to enter Al-Aqsa Mosque as a conqueror. And due to the intensity of his love for and attachment to Jerusalem, he ordered the making of a magnificent wooden minbar, pulpit, adorned with the most beautiful Islamic inscriptions and decorations, to be placed in the Al-Aqsa Mosque after its liberation. This minbar represented Nur ad-Din's promise to his Lord and to his nation. He used to say, "This is the minbar of Jerusalem. I ask God to delight my eyes by putting it in its place." It was not merely a piece of furniture. It was a symbol of hope, resilience, and certainty of victory. Nur ad-Din Mahmud paved the way to Jerusalem, not only with swords and battles, but with a great dream, and with a magnificent wooden minbar, and with an entire generation raised on love for Al-Aqsa and jihad for its sake. In the year 1174 AD, while he was preparing to lead a major campaign toward Jerusalem, death surprised the just Sultan Nur ad-Din Mahmud Zengi. While he was in his 56th year, the exceptional leader departed, and the Nurid flame that illuminated the sky of the Islamic East was extinguished. The Muslims wept at his departure bitterly. They lost a compassionate father, a just leader, and a righteous role model. Nur ad-Din departed before seeing his minbar in the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and before delighting his eye with the liberation of Jerusalem. Yet, did Nur ad-Din truly die? No, he did not die, for his immortal legacy remained alive in the hearts of his pupils, in the schools he built, in the hospitals he constructed, and in the strong army he left. He left behind a genius pupil, a hero who knew no weariness, and that is Saladin Ayyubi. Saladin completed the Nurid march, carrying the banner with complete trust. And after a few years of his teacher's departure, Saladin was able to achieve Nur ad-Din's dream, and open the gates of Jerusalem as a conqueror in the immortal Battle of Hattin. And when Saladin entered Al-Aqsa Mosque as a conqueror, he did not forget his teacher's promise. He ordered the bringing of the magnificent Nurid Minbar from Aleppo, and it was placed in its designated spot in the Al-Aqsa Mosque to be a witness to the dream of a great leader, and to the faithfulness of a pious pupil, and to the ability of the Islamic nation to rise and triumph. Sultan Nur ad-Din Zengi was not merely a number in the record of history. He was an entire chapter from the chapters of might and dignity. He taught us that victory begins with building the human and justice, and that union is strength, and that great dreams are what make heroes. Nur ad-Din departed, and his name remained engraved in the nation's memory, a beacon guiding generations toward Jerusalem and toward a better tomorrow.